Good morning. So today I'm going to talk about black kids and white Jesus. And what that means is presenting white Jesus to black children and how that can affect black children. So I know that according to the Bible stories that Jesus really was not white. Actually, he was a Jew living in the Middle Eastern area, and he was a Middle Eastern Jew. He probably had brown skin, maybe light brown skin, but the point is, he definitely was not white, according to the story. I remember looking in the Bible and looking at the map, and there's, Jerusalem and Israel and Bethlehem, and it's not Europe. The Bible, Holy Land, that's not Europe. So it is amazing that Jesus was presented to me as a white man when I was growing up. But when I became an adolescent, when I was like 12, then I began to hear more black people say, well, Jesus was not white. He was actually a Middle Eastern Jew. His skin was probably light brown. His skin was probably dark brown. I heard that when I got a little older. But when I was little, when I was 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, when I was in that age range, I thought that Jesus was white because when I got my Bible, the characters in the Bible, they were all white. The pictures of the Bible story people, they were all white. Jesus was especially white. And I used to watch cartoons of white Jesus when I was a little kid. And I'm not blaming this on white Christianity because my parents, they could have chosen a more black-centered Christianity. They could have, but when I was little, they wanted to homeschool their kids, and this was up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So up north in Wisconsin, the white Christians were the leaders of the homeschool movement, and so my parents got involved in white Christian material, and they began to listen to white man pastors, and they even went to a white church. Now, at first, we started off going to a black church. Now, at this black church, even though everybody was black, when we did Sunday school, the pictures that were presented to the black kids were pictures of white people and white Jesus. And I was kind of like, okay, so we have to look up to white Jesus and white Christians and white culture. And then my parents did a switch to they went to a all white church. And here I am, I'm a little 7-year-old girl thinking that Jesus is white. And I'm thinking that in order for me to get real inspiration, I had to look outside of the black community, and I had to look up to the white community to get true inspiration from white Jesus. And I did think these thoughts, even as a little kid, starting at age 9, that maybe the white Christian kids were having more fun with Jesus because they could relate to Jesus and his whiteness because they were white and Jesus was white, and Jesus was a part of their culture, and especially for the white boys, they could identify with the fact that, hey, Jesus is white like me. Jesus is a male like me, good for me. They could relate to Jesus and see him as a part of their culture. And so for me as a black Christian girl, I'm looking up to white Jesus. I'm worshiping white Jesus. I am praying to white Jesus. And I'm thinking that I have to look outside of my culture to be inspired. And I think that's one of the dangers of presenting white Jesus to black children. That's kind of one of the dangers. That's where I'm getting at. So here's this little thing I got. This is I wonder if you can see this. Okay, this is the little thing in an Easter egg hunt that my son went to. He went to an Easter egg hunt, and it was a big public Easter egg hunt. And so he opened up one of the eggs, and he sees this, white Jesus, okay? And so he gives it over. He gives it to somebody else. He gives it to his dad. He's like, he does not want it because he knows. I already told him that Jesus was not white, and when you see white Jesus, it's just a symbol of white supremacy. That's how I view white Jesus today. I view him as a symbol of white supremacy. And so my little boy, he got this information early in his life, and he just did not want white Jesus because he knows that Jesus was not white, and he knows that I view white Jesus, as a symbol of white supremacy. And so he didn't want it. And so, but I show you that image because that's how I viewed Jesus as an early kid. And for many years, all throughout my early childhood, that's how I viewed Jesus. And yeah, like I said, when I got a little bit older, it's like, okay, he's a Jew. Okay, but even though Jesus, according to the Bible, may have been a Jew, that's still outside of my culture. And it seems as though when people really want to get inspired, they really want their heroes to look like themselves. For example, in Japan, their leadership looks like them. They have their own religion. Their religion. I'm talking of Japan. They have the Buddha. They have something. They have something else too. The Buddha religion. That's not the only religion that they have there. They have something else there. But at least their leaders look like them. The leaders are the same ethnic group as them. The same thing for the people of India. They have their own religion. They have Hinduism. That's not the only religion in India. But my point is, at least their leaders look like them. And so for many years in the Black community, and we know the history of Black Americans, they were brought over here against their will, and they were presented with white Jesus because their captors were white. And so since the masters back then were Christians, the masters were able to make their slaves to become Christians. So here we have a group of Black people taking on the religion of their oppressor. And so that was a problem. So today, I see many Black American Christians still embracing white Jesus and white Christianity and looking outside of their culture for inspiration. So that's happening a lot here in the United States. So yeah, so when I was a child, my dad had the flashcards. We were looking at the Abeka curriculum. And my dad had these flashcards, and he was telling the Bible story, and he would show us these big pictures of white Adam and Eve, and also the story of Solomon, and they were drawn as white. The story of King David, and we're looking at these big pictures of white King David, and all the Bible characters were white. And this went on all the way up until I was 12. And then they were trying to get me to get this big switch, but it was very hard for me to get this big switch. Now, some of you guys know about Megyn Kelly. Now, Megyn Kelly, you probably know who she is. If you don't, I think you should look her up. But she was saying that Jesus was white. Now, it's very strange that she said that Jesus was white because she is an educated woman. She got her education. She was all over TV, and she was one of the anchors for Fox 6 News. And so she comes out of the blue and say, hey, Jesus is white and Santa Claus is white. And then a few days later, she get corrected, and other people are telling her, hey, look at the Holy Land. It's not in Europe, okay? So, but yeah, some people will say, and I'm going to be sarcastic when I say this. One of the greatest miracles that Jesus ever performed was turning white. Now I'm being sarcastic, but since I majored in history education, and since I know more about history than I did when I was back when I was a kid, I was able to get more history information, and I came to the realization that the reason why Jesus turned white was because the white Christians were able to take over, and portions of the New Testament was written in Greek. Now, Greek is located in Europe, therefore, whiteness. So I just thought that was pretty interesting. And then there's the Holy Roman Empire, okay? Rome, located in Europe, okay? So here we have the Emperor Constantine, and he's a famous emperor way back when Rome was in charge, and he was able to get the Council of Nicaea, and he was able to get the Nicene Creed. And so since he was able to do that, this European emperor, he was able to get the church fathers to agree on Christianity and to agree on Jesus. And these people, they also began to draw pictures of Jesus. And then I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the Protestant Reformation that happened in Germany. Germany is located in Europe. These German Europeans are white. They will be considered white people. And so the Protestant Reformation, that was when they had a leader called Martin Luther back then. And this German man, his name is Martin Luther, he was able to start the Protestant Reformation and the Luther religion, the Lutherans. And he was able to break away from the Catholic Church and start a different kind of Christianity. And so this happened in Germany, and also in Germany was the printing press. So yes, the printing press was invented in Germany. And so now you have white Europeans printing the Bible. So since they get to print the Bible, they get to draw pictures of white Jesus, and they begin to create a white version of their own Christianity, and they were able to spread their version of white Christianity onto the rest of the world, and therefore that's how I was able to get white Jesus. And that's why I thought that this was white Jesus, blue-eyed man with brown hair. That's how I viewed Jesus throughout my early childhood, all the way up until age 12. That's how I viewed Jesus, and it's because of this history. So based on the information that I got, Christianity is a white man's religion. It is a white man's religion. Now, I'm very aware that many black people are proud of the Ethiopians, because the Ethiopians were able to get the Bible early when Christianity began to spread in the fourth century. The 4th century, the Ethiopians were able to get the Bible, but the Ethiopians did not write the Bible. So yes, Ethiopia is a country located in Africa, and the Ethiopians had the Bible for a long time, but it was brought to them, okay? And so I would love for you to Google this up. I love to ask Google questions, And so I read that the Bible was brought to them because a Greek missionary brought the Bible to the Ethiopians. And then I also read that some Syrian man, they had a shipwreck, and these men were from Syria, and they brought the Bible to Ethiopia, and so the Ethiopians were able to get the Bible that way. But my point is, the Ethiopian black Africans, they did not write the Bible. The Bible was brought to them, and they had it for a long time. So anyways, some people might wonder, why are so many black African Americans, why are they so deep in Christianity when that is the religion of their oppressor? Well, a lot of black African Americans don't see it that way. There's this man, his name is James Cone, and he was very popular back in the 1960s. And he's also known as the father of liberation theology. And he taught that black people can embrace they can embrace Christianity because Jesus suffered and died for the sins of the world. And so since Jesus suffered, and since black people were suffering in the 1960s, the black people can relate to Jesus' suffering and use the suffering of Jesus to identify with Jesus. So it was just this new black liberation theology that James Cone was able to produce to black people. And in a way, he was also able to, take away Jesus's whiteness and say, no, Jesus is one of us because he suffered, And so he was able to get black people to embrace Jesus that way, And so yeah, he's considered the father of liberation theology, and he's also considered the father of black theology. And so he knew how to get creative with Christianity, and he knew how to make it seem like it's for black people. And so black people back then were able to create their own version of black Christianity. So then we have black Christianity over here and white Christianity over there. And these black Christians were able to say that because of the blood of Jesus, Jesus set us black people free. So we are free from the bondage of slavery, and we are free from the bondage of sin, and we are free from the bondage of white supremacy. So they were able to turn black Christianity into a freedom and a weapon against white supremacy. So that was kind of different, but he was being very creative, and a group of black people were creative with this guy. If you want to, you should look him up. His name is James Cone, and he made Christianity more acceptable to black people. Now, I'm a former Christian. I read the whole Bible. I realized that the Bible is not inspired by God. Now, there is no proof to support that the Bible was inspired by God. I read the Bible, and it looks like it was man-made. It looks as though a man made it. There's verses against women. There's verses about selling your daughter into slavery. A lot of Christians ignore those verses. But I read the Bible and I realize it's putting women down. And because the man back then wrote it, these men were barbaric, they were rough, they did not know any better. They looked down on women. They made claims that God wanted women to be under a man, and that the man should, have the power to control the woman. It looks like the Bible was written by men who were power hungry. And so when I saw this, I realized that I needed to get out of Christianity because it wasn't working for me. It wasn't working out for me. It was making me feel bad about myself. I was worshiping a male God. And back then I was believing that men were superior to women, and just not good. And by the time I was 34 years old, I knew I needed to get out of that way of thinking. It was not good for me. It was not good for my son. It was not good for my daughter for me to think that way. So we don't think that way anymore. So today, I reject the ideas of white supremacy. I reject the ideas of male supremacy. And I used to have these thoughts. Oh, by the way, I want to make this point. I don't blame man for these ideas, because women have engaged in these ideas, and there are some women who are pushing the idea of submitting to man, and some women are telling other women, hey, when you get married, you should let go of your plans and your goals, and you should just obey your husband and be under him. And these are really bad ideas. But some women have been teaching these harmful beliefs. And so this is a people problem. I don't blame man. all the way for this women have engaged in these bad ideas and have agreed on these bad ideas. So this is a people problem. But I'm just glad to say that I don't agree with this way of thinking, and I am out of it. So back to my point. My point is teaching white Jesus to black kids. That could mess up a black child's self-esteem. It's not good for black children's self-esteem to be presented with white Jesus, because you're teaching black children that in order for them to be inspired, they have to look up to a white man. They have to look up to white Jesus. They have to look up to him and obey his commands and obey what he says and listen to what he says. And it encourages black children to look outside of their ethnic group and think that that white Jesus and white Christianity, they're the ones that got it right. So I really do discourage the practice of teaching white Jesus to black kids. It's not good for them, and it might backfire. So that's basically all I have to say today. That's basically it. And yeah, please comment in the comment section, and I will see you later. Goodbye.